Nobody remembered when the stories about Aldermoor Lane had started. People only said the park felt different after dark. Too quiet, too empty. Even the dogs noticed it. They pulled on their leads when they reached the second lamp, as if they wanted to leave. Most owners laughed it off. Dogs were strange sometimes. But over the last few weeks, more and more people had stopped walking there at night. Not because they had seen something, because they felt something. A presence waiting somewhere beyond the light, standing very still in the dark. The park on Aldermoor Lane was the kind of place where nothing ever happened. A narrow green strip with a gravel path and 4 buzzing amber lamps. Every evening, the same people walked the same dogs in the same slow circle. Martin Hale had done it for 9 years with Brass, his aging golden retriever. Though stiff with age, Brass still pulled eagerly at the lead, as if something wonderful might be waiting around the next bend. Martin loved him for that. It was a cold Tuesday in October. Brass suddenly stopped walking. He sat in the middle of the path and stared into the darkness between the lamps. His ears were flat. His tail was still. Martin pulled the leash gently. "Come on, old boy," he said quietly. But Brass did not move. Martin followed Brass's gaze into the darkness between the lamps. At first, he saw nothing. Then he noticed a figure standing perfectly still at the edge of the light. It looked human, but something about it felt wrong. Its head tilted strangely, as if it had been placed there. White face paint reflected the amber glow of the lamp. A wide red mouth stretched across its face. The figure was holding something. Martin realized it was a dog, his neighbor's spaniel, Pip. "Hey!" Martin called out. "That dog isn't yours." The figure slowly tilted its head the other way. Then it stepped backward into the darkness between the houses and disappeared. Martin ran toward the gap between the fences. He stopped and looked down the alley. It was completely empty. Nothing moved, only trash bins, wet concrete, and the distant sound of a television from somewhere above. Martin stood outside his house and called the police. He tried to explain what he had seen. A person in a costume had taken his neighbor's dog. The officer on the phone listened calmly and said a report would be filed. Martin slowly lowered the phone. Brass let out a quiet whimper. Martin placed a hand on the dog's neck without saying a word. Then something shifted behind him. Not a sound, just a strange feeling in the air. Martin froze. A hand slowly rested on his shoulder. Gentle, quiet. He started to turn around, but never finished. The police found Martin 4 hours later. He was sitting alone on the pavement 3 streets away, unharmed, but confused. He couldn't remember anything after the phone call. In his hands, he held Brass's empty collar. Detective Constable Yvonne Marsh took the case because nobody else wanted it. But Yvonne was thorough. She searched through weeks of police reports and found a pattern. Dog owners from different boroughs all described the same thing. A figure in a clown costume taking dogs in silence. Afterwards, the owners were always confused and unable to remember what happened. One woman was found sitting inside her garden shed. Another man drove 11 miles without knowing where he was going. None of them were harmed, but every single dog was gone. 17 dogs had disappeared in 6 weeks. None were ever found. Yvonne spread the case files across her desk and studied them carefully. The locations formed a slow spiral across the city. It looked deliberate, like a route, like a circuit. The pattern was tightening, and leading back toward one place. Yvonne traced the line with her finger. It ended at Aldermoor Lane. Yvonne returned to Aldermoor Lane at night with her colleague, Ray. They walked the same path through the empty park. The amber street lamps buzzed softly in the dark. Wet leaves covered the ground. Beneath the smell of rain and autumn, there was something else in the air. Something chemical. Neither of them said a word about it. They reached the stretch between the second and third lamps. Yvonne felt something before she even saw it. A figure stood in the middle of the path, completely still. White face, red mouth, motionless. "Police! Don't move!" As she stepped closer, she saw the dogs behind it, sitting in the grass in a loose cluster. 8, 10, maybe more. She couldn't be sure in the dark. All of them were perfectly still, watching. At the front, she recognized a spaniel with a red collar. "Pip," she whispered. "Step back from the animals. Put your hands where I can see them." The figure slowly raised its hands, white gloves, palms open. The movement felt strangely theatrical, almost like it was saying, "You found me. What now?" Then something changed in its face. Not the painted smile, the eyes. Yvonne felt a sudden pressure in her chest. Behind her, Ray said her name sharply. Later, Yvonne could never explain what happened that night. One moment, she was facing the figure with Ray beside her. The next, she was standing alone near the iron gate. There was no memory of the missing time, just a clean gap, like something had been cut away. No pain, no sound, only absence. They searched the park for hours, but the figure was gone. The dogs were gone. There were no footprints where it had stood. Even the strange chemical smell had disappeared. Only the amber lamps remained, quietly buzzing in the dark. In the car, Ray quietly asked, "Did you see its eyes?" "Yes," Yvonne replied. They drove the rest of the way in silence. Yvonne stared at the spiral on her phone map. At first, she thought it ended at Aldermoor Lane. But then she realized something worse. The spiral wasn't ending. It was starting again. A new circuit moving slowly through the city, street by street, dog walkers disappearing into the dark. In the mirror, the lamps of Aldermoor Lane grew smaller and smaller until the 4 amber lights vanished completely. 3 months later, another dog disappeared. Then another. Different streets, different owners, always at night, always near a park. Witnesses described the same figure. White face, red mouth, motionless beneath the street lamps. The police never connected the cases publicly. But sometimes, late at night, Yvonne still opened the map on her phone and watched the spiral grow, slowly widening through the city, street by street, lamp by lamp, waiting for the next person to take their dog for an evening walk.